So what would make an American politician someone legitimately targetable for assassination? Well, if they were a traitor, traitors, of course, can constitutionally be put before a court and killed for treason. That can happen. So what if the courts are unwilling to do that because they protect Trump? Prepping the environment of showing Trump rolling through courtrooms, being convicted, a 36-time convicted felon, and yet he's still allowed to run in the Republican National Committees or be their nominee. The MAGAs are still willing to vote for him. After all, he has absolutely promised to be a dictator on day one. That's what he said. Be a dictator on day one. You all know, and I know what President Trump was saying in that. But we cannot put aside the fact that he is committing genocide, literally. He is going to disappear so-called people, commit genocide against them by not allowing boys to steal girls' medals, scholarships, and grades, and men to do that to women. That's genocide. It's literally killing people. So it begins with prepping the environment that Trump is going to get us into a whole series of foreign wars for money, unlike the figureheads and Kamala Harris, who have been forced peacemongers, making sure we have peace at all costs, specifically with Russia, and not funding both sides of the war. They would never do that. So as they paint Trump up to be not kind of Hitler, but literal Hitler, as many in the mainstream media, Mockingbird media, contended, it's a good idea to compare Trump to Hitler. An organization called the Lincoln Project pushed this out further. Rick Wilson is a guy I met, I had drinks with, but he drank and I listened, in Washington, D.C. Back in the day, he was a legendary opposition researcher for Republicans. When some of the people at the Republican National Committee saw that Rick Wilson had retweeted me, they actually knocked on my office door. Seriously. Todd, you know Rick Wilson? No, I don't. He just retweeted you. Oh, you don't know who he is? You've never met him? How did he retweet you? I don't know. Who is he? He's a legend. He is one of the most hardcore opposition researchers on our side the world has ever seen. So having learned that, I decided, you know what? I want to meet the guy. Popped him a note. We got together in a swank DC bar upstairs in a private area. He had on what I believe are alligator skin boots, black jeans, and as I recall, a black leather sports coat and black shirt. Power colors, as it were. He and I talked a little bit, and there was a time when Rick Wilson was a legendary conservative opposition researcher. He even smacked down the people at Media Matters in impressive form. And then, as I read this, he lost all influence in the conservative side. He took a shot at President Trump. In fact, he did it on my radio show in Seattle. I was one of the first people to have him on the air to get his point of view about President Trump. He was tracking the amount of media that Trump was getting versus the other candidates. And like a lot of people, he bought in to the idea that Trump was a very, very dangerous man. But 4 years into his time as president, Rick Wilson still thought he was literally Hitler? No, here's what I think happened. Rick no longer had any currency as an opposition researcher because the world had changed. And currency is important. He's a man with a family to feed. Therefore, we get the Lincoln Project, and the prepping of the environment continued. This is an ad from the Lincoln Project.
In the 1930s, Hitler didn't just seize power. It was handed to him by the wealthy, by the powerful, by a compliant elite, by people who thought they were above the angry masses and violent anti-Semites. He was given power by Germans who knew what he believed, but thought they could contain him, control him, that his crazed speeches and dangerous antics were just for show, that his hatred would never turn on them. But like every dictator before or since, Hitler used his power to bring death, despair, and tragedy to the world. Before the world said, never again, millions of Germans believed it can't happen here. Germany bet wrong in 1933. Will we?
He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
The Lincoln Project.us. That's a campaign ad. Did you spot it? I did. Kamala Harris has been voted for by no one. Not a single Democrat grassroots member voted for Kamala Harris, and yet she's suddenly the party's leader, the figurehead in the background. Didn't we just hear the Lincoln Project say that Trump is going to have power handed to him? Handed to him? He went through a primary with debates that he chose not to participate in, but they were there. He went through a primary as being attacked by the Mockingbird media, the court system. Well, he couldn't campaign. He went through a primary. Handed to him? The party tried to take him off of the ballots of key states. Handed to him? He's still facing sentencing coming up by a corrupt judge named Merchan, whose daughter is bankrolled by people like Kamala Harris. Handed to him? Kamala Harris was selected to be vice president for the following reasons. She decided to call herself black, and despite the fact that she feels the need to use pronouns, she is a woman. The figurehead made that clear. Power handed to her? She suddenly has $100 million in her campaign war chest, or 50, I think, and then she gets to control the Biden-Harris campaign funds over which President Trump is suing because those people did not donate to Kamala Harris for president, but figurehead Biden for president. Handed to Trump, but not Kamala. Kamala did not attend Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. She was at a sorority get-together. Anti-Semitic? Who was the member of Congress? Was it Rashida Tlaib? I get them confused. How could I? They're both terrorists, or all three of them, terrorist supporters, sitting in Congress with a sign that says, war criminal? But Benjamin Netanyahu, but not, of course, Zelensky, because Zelensky was attacked. Wait, wasn't Israel attacked? But the Lincoln Project tells us that Trump is the anti-Semitic one. See, in Washington, D.C., when the money runs out being a professional Republican, you can turn. Then you can be a conservative commentator. And then you can make a further turn and become a leftist and help the leftist cause. All the while, in your mind, you haven't changed. You've simply seen things more clearly. I'm guessing that's what happened to Rick Wilson. I don't know, and I don't know his soul. I just know the patterns. Patterns are vitally important for us.